you deserve to be there and you get that extra um I don't know, boost of confidence maybe by being seen as a professional at that set. You also get recognition for your brand. And I had so many people not only instantly follow me on social media, but physically came by my booth and bought things. Hi everyone, welcome to Behind the Booth. I'm Jade, and as always is my award-winning producer, Heather.
And on this channel, we talk about wild stories from Comic Con vendors because Jade is a Comic Con vendor. She invented a product and she has her own booth at tons of Comic Cons. She's been all over the country and she sells her products. They're absolutely beautiful, they're little stencil gummy things. But today, we're going to talk about actually speaking engagements, which sounds like kind of a weird topic for a booth vendor, but we're going to talk about how it correlates because let's be honest, just having a booth sometimes isn't enough. So let's talk about how we can help kind of boost what you're doing with speaking engagements.
Yeah, it's a really great opportunity. And I know what a lot of you may be thinking, which is I'm an artist, I'm a vendor, I'm not a speaker. And, one of our mentors, Gary, will say, like, you've been speaking since you're 3, blah, 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 blah. Like it's very difficult for me to speak because I'm an introvert. And those of you who know me really well know and are perfectly aware that after every speaking engagement, I usually throw up because it's so difficult. It's so much it's very intense for me. But it can do some really great things for your business, for your product line, and it can actually be another form of generating income. So at NDK, which is a local event here in Denver, I talked about a topic that basically I cover in this, which is how you can make money with art. Um, and there's a lot of aspiring artists out there that have the skill and the drive and the ability to do it, but they're just missing some key components. And so that's what my topic was about. And they give you usually between 45 minutes and an hour. Um, they give you a projector. It was weird not having a microphone, I have to say, because I
You
have
didn't have a
been a professional speaker
microphone?
for a very long time. Yeah. They didn't have a microphone. They didn't have a lavalier or a lapel. They had one at the table. Anyone who's ever seen me speak knows I don't sit behind a table and lecture. I stand up, I get out there, I gesture, I point, I get people engaged.
She
Um,
dances.
I do dance. That's true. I
She
dance,
wiggles her butt.
do the wiggle butt. Um, so I mean that was a little weird for me. So it was just a matter of projection. And I honestly didn't know if anyone was going to show up. I had a sign about it at my booth and I shared about it on social media and they put it on their website and blah, 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 blah. But I didn't know because the other things that were available at the event was like karaoke and things like that, which is, what people really want to go see. Or they have demonstrations, like they had different types of musical demonstrations that were happening, which fortunately and unfortunately was right next to me. So a lot of my audio that I recorded for my event has all of the musical instruments and singing and stuff in the background. Which, as we've covered before, I don't have a voice to compete with singing. But it seemed like people took a lot from the topic itself. Well, what it allowed is other than the reinforcement of you are professional, you know what you're doing, you deserve to be there, and you get that extra, um, I don't know, boost of confidence maybe by being seen as a professional at that set. You also get recognition for your brand. And I had so many people not only instantly follow me on social media, but physically came by my booth and bought things. Not because during my presentation I advertised what I had. I didn't say, this is my product and this is what my product can do and you should buy it. Because when you're speaking, you're not supposed to sell from stage. Do
Right.
people do it? Yes. Do they get invited back? No. It's one of those rules that you do not ever sell from stage unless they give you that offer. It's like when you go to someone's house, until they invite you in, you need to keep your happy ass outside. Like
Yeah.
that's just kind of how that works. So if they invite you to sell from stage or promote something, then you just save it for the end. Do not make your whole topic about that. But in this case, they said, very much do not sell from stage. They're very clear about it. I'm like, okay, cool, no problem. So I had examples of things, but not how they worked, what they did, videos about them, anything like that. Like, this is what my
Mm.
booth looks like. Obviously, my booth has stencils and pride stuff on it. So it was really helpful to have people come by, and then you also have this, like, feeling of give back to your community.
Yeah.
Um, Artists are a very weird community, and I don't mean weird as in, like, we're psychotic or we have mental problems, which a lot of us do,
A little
and a lot
bit.
of us are crazy, like, I'm legit crazy. But there is a community within us that we're not like really anything else. I mean, if you think about, like, a community of doctors, they have their own thing that they have. They have their own, like, what they went through, grad school, expenses, blah, 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 blah. But there's a level of prestige with being a doctor. When you tell somebody you're an artist, people treat you very differently, and that box is so weird and vast that we are our own community that not always has a positive connection to what it is that we do. People
Yeah.
don't always see us as having something to offer the community and offer the world. We are seen as sometimes like petulant children, because a lot of us are starving, a lot of us are struggling, and that's just a part of the lifestyle that doesn't need to be there.
Hmm.
We deserve to be paid for what we do as much as anybody else. So we have our own weird community within us. So being able to give back to that community, especially with people that have talent and have skill and drive that aren't making it yet. So when it comes to these topics, I know people that are teaching chainmail classes. There are people that are teaching origami classes. I was teaching one of those. They're teaching things like art, intro to voice acting. So there are a lot of things that people have as skills that these events are looking for, and these events will pay you to do them. So some of them will do things like they'll give you your booth for free if you do a speaking thing, or they'll pay you on top of what you're doing, or I mean, it just kind of depends on the interest level. But I highly encourage artists to see what they have talent or skill in. I
Yeah.
mean, Heather could easily do a class on how to start your own podcast successfully. And if any of you are looking at this video, you can see all of her awards and accolades she has in the back. I mean, she has the ability to do something like that. She's got a skill set that
Yeah.
she could bring to these conventions. So it's a matter of having a good outline of what you're talking about and applying.
Yeah.
And I applied to like 15. I got into one.
Mhm.
Um, and the main reason why I was rejected for most of them is that I didn't have any video of my topics that I was covering. I have video of my other
Oh,
speaking things, but not this. So if you get into anything, even if you have to do it quote unquote for free, get video of it, get photos. So that
mhm.
way you can apply to other things and they can actually see you talk.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, and like she's talking about, you have you all do have the skill set to teach something to, to give that kind of encouragement to other possible vendors, stuff like that. Like you do have that in you, it's definitely something to get over because again, like you said, it's a bunch of artists, a lot of you, I say you because yes, I am an artist, but in a different way. I am very extroverted. A lot of you are very introverted. And so this might sound like I would rather beat my brains out. Like that sounds terrible than like getting on a stage and talking to people. And I'm extroverted and I'm a theater dork, so like it doesn't help for me to be like, "Oh, it's not so hard." Like it's not so hard for me. But like Jade said, it's not easy, but it's a way to get your face out there. And then people were actually coming up to her and talking to her about her products and finding her on social media. And sometimes she even got paid, like, or above whatever. But like it's
I was paid, yes.
yeah.
Paid.
or I mean like a trade kind of thing, it's paid or a trade. Um like it's worth it to look into because you can do it. And honestly, the worst thing that can happen is like I don't know, you forget what you were going to talk about and you have to stare at your notes the whole time. Or, like it's really not going to be so bad if the worst thing happens and then you try it and then you're like, "Well, that sucked. I'm never doing it again." And then you never do it again. Like, but if you just try it, it could really open up into something great.
And I know for myself that I do solid with Q&As, but I wanted when I say an outline, I mean, you don't have to write down every single letter of every single thing you're going to say. When you apply, you have to have basically bullet points of what you wanted to talk about. So each one of my bullet points I made into a slide. I think I had maybe 5 slides on my deck, I wanna say, maybe 7, if you were including the cover page and the contact us page. But it was like, when I went through my slide, I saw what it was I was supposed to talk about, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right." I talked about that. And then I moved on to
Yeah.
the next thing, talked about that. Um, and people that are there, I mean, this is not like high school. People are there because they wanna be there, not because they're told to be there. So, they're very invested in listening to what you have to say.
Yeah.
And there was this one guy that I thought he hated me because, when you look at your audience, they're right there.
Yeah.
It's not like I have spotlights in my face. I can see everybody. He was just like this the whole time.
But was he just really paying
I thought
attention?
I offended him or something. I didn't know what was going on. And then he raised his hand. I was like, "Oh, sweet Jesus. Okay," to answer his question. And he was super nice.
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh, he has what is it? Resting bitch
resting
face
bitch
while
face.
studying or something?" Like, he was thinking and listening so hard, he just looked pissed off. And I was like, "Oh god, please don't embarrass me in front of these people," 'cause, that's one thing you can't control is what questions people ask.
Yeah.
It's how you field the questions. So I was preparing to deal with him being a douchebag, and he was very, very nice, and he came up to me at the end, and said how valuable it was and how he really appreciated my time and where he could find out more information. And so
Yeah.
that's why it's nice that we have the podcast is because I could direct a lot of people to the podcast to answer more questions that they were more specific about. Like one of the Q&A questions was like, "Well, how do you travel?" I was like, "That's a great question. I actually cover this in one of my podcast episodes. Here's the link. If you can't find it, reach out to me. I'll send it to you directly." And that's increasing my engagement. And of course, I have the QR codes fucking everywhere for the podcast. And bless her heart, Heather, I was like texting her, like, what's our link again? Because I can't get it to work and I don't know what I'm doing because I don't do this side of things. You're the producer. I don't know to produce it. And she's like, it's all in Google Drive. Right. That was my idea. I don't know why I didn't remember that it was there. Um, but it was really great to get that initial interaction. And I've actually been recognized at more shows that are not in this area. But because I was posted on social media or people saw me and have gone to other things that I just happened to be at, where they're like, "Yeah, you did that talk." I was like, "Yeah, that was me." They're like, "Oh, cool, yeah. So what are you doing here? Are you talking here? When's your next event? When's your" and I'm like, "Oh, that's so sweet. I don't have any booked right now, but thank you." They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, let's hang out later." I'm like, "Cool, where? Because 'Cause I'm fucking exhausted. Like, where are we going?" Um, but people are really nice and they'll bring you like, they brought me presents. I didn't know what to do with that. Like, they brought me little presents and I was like, "Oh, thank you. I love it." And so it's in my booth. I have a little, vellum bag at my booth that I hang up that has all the little trinkets and things that people have given me, like my good luck
Oh.
sack.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
know, and I get to see it. No one else can see it because it's behind my booth, so I get to see it and you're like, "Oh, look at all this love I have."
that's so
Somebody brought me a worm
cute.
on a string.
Like,
Evidently, it's a joke of some kind.
I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but I was brought a worm on a string, and I said, "Okay, I love it. Thank you. You're gonna get weird gifts, and it's
Yep.
awesome." But it felt really great to give back, and I will say one of the things that's pretty cool about when you apply is you can kinda tell them the time frames that you can and can't do. So, I told them that I'd prefer to do after the showroom closed, because that way I don't have to leave my booth, and
Yeah.
they were absolutely able to accommodate that, and at NDK, I actually applied for 2 things, and I got both of them, which is very unusual. I got both topics, so I was really grateful for
Nice.
that. But again, get video, get photos, and, the one of the things that I asked people for is I'm like, "If you enjoyed my talk, please tell um,
The
oh gosh,
convention.
what are they called? The event coordinators.
Yeah.
That's who I wanted them to tell. The people that do all the planning and did the approval of the committee. I was like, "Please tell them because that's what will help me." Because, you get a reputation of being good, you get a reputation of having solid information, and it's easier to get in the circuit, and any additional income we can get from being at these shows is super valuable. And when you can offset things like the cost of your table or that they will pay you 200, $500 for your talk. Some places even pay the creators, it's called a creators panel, pay their
Hmm.
creators like 1,500 for a 45-minute talk. So, and I'm sure the number can be larger or smaller depending on where you're going, but
Yeah.
it's a big deal, and that also helps you, justify some of your costs that you have. That right off the bat, "Okay, well, at least I'm gonna get $200 for this talk, so that's one night stay at the hotel." You can like kind of think of it like that, but it all helps. And I just couldn't believe people came to my table afterwards. I expected them to be like, "Okay, that's great, bye." And I had like half the classroom come by my table that weekend. I was like, "Oh my gosh, you were in my class. Hi." And then I didn't know what to do because I was not on stage anymore. And I got all
Yeah,
bug-eyed and weird.
as you
Did I
do.
do that? Yeah.
But yeah, so like don't be afraid to put yourself out there. There is some kind of topic that you could teach other people, you could talk about, and it could really help your business. So if this is at all like enticing to you, even just a little bit, even if you're like, I'm terrified of this, but I want to try it. Like, if you want to ask any questions, of course, please, you can talk to us on any of our social media and we'll help you however we can, because it is very nerve wracking, especially when you're doing it for the first time. Good Lord. But like, just there is something, of course there is. There's many things about you and about your business that would be helpful to other people. So don't count yourself out just because you're like, well, it's easy for me. It may be easy for you, but it's not easy for everybody. And you're like, you know your stuff. You really do. Especially if you're listening to this, if you already have a booth, if you're thinking about it, like there is something about you, something about what you're doing that other people could really get a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Like a lot of quality content out of.
Value?
Yeah, value. Thank you. A lot of value out of, and you know you have it. So give it a try. If you hate it, it's fine. You don't have to do it, but like it could be amazing.
Well, thank you so much for watching this episode, and a special thank you to Nerdy Girl Podcast for producing this episode. We'll see you later.